to the world. Subscribe now to the Hot 97 YouTube channel. It's Ebro in the Morning with Laura Stiles and Rosenberg.
It's Ebro in the Morning. Laura Stiles. Rosenberg is on assignment this morning. We got to get back in the streets. There's still a movement going on out here. And, today we got to talk about the fact that, look, no matter how this voter election and this election goes in a couple of weeks, there's work that needs to be done with police reform. The work that needs to be done in our communities dealing with white supremacy and racism isn't going to stop just because the occupant of the White House changes. We may have a favorite. We may want to see Kamala. We may want to see Biden. Hell, you may want to see Trump. But no matter who's in there, we got work to do. And the people doing the work on the front lines, we love to have them on the program today. We got Mysonne, our brother, as well as Tamika Mallory, our sister, to talk to us about a movement taking place this weekend right here in New York City. Tamika, what's happening?
So first of all, good morning to the good family.
Good morning.
It's good to see y'all. And Laura, you know how much we love you and praying for your success throughout the rest of your time, your pregnancy.
Thank you.
You're glowing. You are glowing. So thank y'all. And, you know, on Saturday, we are bringing Breonna Taylor's family to New York City. You know how much we love New York. Obviously, New York is home. The last few months, we actually have been living in Kentucky, working with Breonna's family on the ground, helping them to fight for justice for their daughter. And they are coming to New York, and they're going to specifically be uniting with Eleanor Bumper's family. A lot of people may not know, especially in our age group, but you should definitely do your research on Eleanor Bumpers, who was an elderly woman killed by the NYPD in her home in 1984. In fact, it actually happened in October of 1984. She had some mental health issues. Police officers were there. They were supposed to be helping to evict her from her apartment. And they went into her home and shot her to death. And so we're bringing the two families together because we know that Breonna Taylor is not just a standalone issue. She actually joins a list of other Black women whose lives have been taken in exactly the same way. And we want to be able to show the history. And bringing Breonna's family, her mom, Tamika Palmer, to New York City, we wanted to make sure that we draw the connection to our elders like Deborah Danner, who was another woman who was killed in her home in New York City just a few years ago. And so at 2:30 on Saturday, we're going to be outside the Trump International Hotel on 62nd Street and Columbus Circle. We're going to be taking that area over, having a rally. And the main focus of the rally is to get people out to vote. We want to make sure that as people have been protesting for Breonna Taylor every single day on the streets, we want people to take that protest and go to the polls with the same energy as the polls open early on October 24th in New York City.
Mysonne, you are someone who is always on the front lines, not only as an artist, but, you know, in the last several years as an artist activist, an artivist, if you will. And you, sir, have been very vocal about the weapon of voting, while you also understand and often articulate the corruption that takes place with politicians. Talk to the people who don't really know how to balance out, or let me say, calibrate, what we deal with corruption in politicians and still getting out to vote as our most useful weapon.
Okay, well, first of all, let me say thank you for having us on the show, Ebro and Laura, and, for always supporting everything we do. Cool. I like to call myself a raptivist.
A raptivist. That was what I was looking for.
That's you. I know you were searching for it.
I knew it was something. My bad.
So yeah, based on where we are right now, we realize that our choices that we have aren't ideal. And I wouldn't lie to anybody and say, this is an easy pick and all these things. We realize that our choices aren't ideal, but we do also realize that we live in this country. As Black people in this country, we've got the worst and continue to get the worst. We've always got the worst and continue to get the worst from politics, from the government. I understand those frustrations with our people. But what I say all the time is to be within a government, to live within a government in which these people govern your life, and not be in the process of who is governing your life is just asinine to me. You might not like you might not like both of them, but there has to be one or two issues within this government that you understand impacts you directly, because there are way more. But I know that there's at least two of them that you can say to yourself, these issues right here impact me directly. And this candidate right here is speaking to those needs that I have right now. So as much as I might not be all the way for that candidate, but I understand that my kids need health care. Understand that, student loans is a thing that we have to worry about. Understand that who goes into who we put on the the judges, the Supreme Court judges, is something that I understand is going to affect me. I understand that these laws that are put in by these politicians that we have to vote for are going to affect my life. So to not be involved in that process really does not make sense to me. So yeah, understand that you might not like the candidates you have, and we still have to fight after you elect somebody, and you have to push, but you have to look and see, who do I have the best opportunity to push to do the things that I need done. And that's what we have to say. A lot of our people are jaded. I come from the hood, and a lot of people in the hood is like, man, I ain't voting for none of them. Ain't nothing changing for black people. No, to say that nothing has changed for black people doesn't make sense. We look at the election when Tamika and Linda and Carmen were beautiful enough to lead the women's march, had the vision to say, what, we have to go out. And we've seen what came out of the women's march. We've seen how women were elected, how most of black and brown women were elected. We understand they put them in positions. We've seen how different laws were passed that gave us more opportunities. So to say that voting doesn't count, it just is a narrative and a point that people that don't want you to vote utilize to keep you from voting. It's another form of voter suppression, and we can't keep falling for the banana in the tailpipe.
We can also actively say too that maybe some of the changes have been too incremental for people to notice in that have a limited view. And if you have a macro view and a larger view of a kind of and a more historical view of what has changed for black people, through our ability to activate and vote and put people in power. And by the way, and when you look at cities like Atlanta, when you look at cities like Jackson, Mississippi, when you look at cities like Mobile, Alabama, when you look at some of these predominantly black towns that have had black leadership, that have had black working force and black middle class for generations, they've actually done some great things. When you look at some other areas, maybe like a Detroit that has lost a lot of factory jobs and things like that, the economy obviously took a bad turn there. So I think sometimes it is hard for people to see the incremental wins, the small wins. And I appreciate what you're saying, Mike, because people definitely get very distracted by the noise, and it's easy to commiserate and be on some throw your hands in the air and give up type shit.
Right.
Tamika, when people join with y'all on Saturday, is there anything that people should be wearing? What time should they be there? Where can they get information?
They should be with us at 2:00 on this Saturday, 2:00 Eastern Standard Time. And no, they shouldn't necessarily be wearing anything particular except for some comfy shoes, because of course there are, some who will leave the rally and march. And the families definitely want to do that. Also, people need to know that there's at least 35 leaders coming from Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky residents who have been out there on the streets protesting with Breonna's family for over 100 days. Now I think they're over 140 days that they've been on the ground, and they're actually coming to New York City. And Kenny Walker, her boyfriend, who fired the warning shot in the home to protect Breonna and himself, he is actually in New York and will be at the rally as well. So it's going to be a really, really powerful opportunity for people to come together to make sure that we're not just voting by ourselves, but that we're taking people with us to the polls. You want to make sure that in this election, you don't just show up and take care of your business, but you make sure that Big Mama has whatever she needs, your grandma, your whoever, Abuela, everybody has what they need, including a hazmat suit, because most of us need to take our behinds to the polls if possible when you see all the shenanigans that's happening with this election. And if I could just say one thing about that, nobody works hard to steal from you something that they don't really want and something that they don't think is powerful. And we see already that there's a bunch of stuff happening in Virginia. The last day of voter registration, the system accidentally was cut off where people couldn't register so that they
cable was accidentally cut.
the
Oh, we spoke
cable
about
was
that.
cut.
Right.
Exactly. And there are so many other things. There are poll watchers that have been blocking people from going into the polls, who happen to be Trump supporters. And security has had to be called to allow people to get in to vote. There's a lot of shenanigans happening, as my son said, with voter suppression across this country. No one would be going to that extent if they thought that voting didn't count and that your vote doesn't necessarily matter. So people, we're coming to New York to make sure. Oh, the other thing is some people say, well, New York is not a battleground state. You guys need to go other places. We are doing that. So we leave on the 22nd of October until freedom. We'll be on the road, going to 12 cities before Election Day, having people to get out to vote, taking people to the polls. But what is important in New York also is that folks vote down the ballot. So this is not just about showing up at the election, showing up at the polls just to vote for president. Yes, the presidential ticket is very important, but below that, you have senators on the ballot, you have congressional members on the ballot, you have propositions on the ballot. And so all these things are how your lives are governed. Please do not be foolish and think that you don't have to show up to participate in the system. 2:00 Saturday, Columbus Square, on 62nd Street, across from the Trump Hotel, Trump International Hotel. Meet us there and come and show Breonna Taylor's family how we do it in New York City.
And just to add on that, Tamika, you guys, to everybody who's listening, October 24th is early voting in New York City.
That's Monday, right?
So let's get it popping. You don't, so to avoid as much of the craziness as you can, to ensure that your vote will be counted. Also, there's also sample votes online available, so you can be educated. To Tamika's point, there's so much more at stake than just the presidents. So make sure you guys go to vote.org for any information that you need. It's all available online and it's super easy. So remember, October 24th is when we begin early voting here in New York City.
My son, yesterday Ice Cube was trending about his helping write the Platinum Plan and working with the Republicans on that plan. He says he reached out to Democrats because he doesn't feel like anybody has paid attention to the contract with Black America and has really put together a plan for that. Do you have any feelings on what you've seen with regard to the idea of the Black agenda and where things can go, not only right now but after this, after this election?
All, I want to say shout out to Ice Cube. I love Ice Cube, man, and I love his mind state. His mind state is at this point we need a direct contract, like he said, with Black America. What are we going to get? And we need to get something for our vote. And I definitely we have to be very strategic in the way that we go about saying these things and go about getting these things. We understand that Donald Trump is a master manipulator. He is a master marketer, and he utilizes everything to his advantage. Although what Cube is going for is very good, I think what Cube should do is reach out to somebody like Tamika Mallory, reach out to people who are on the front line, who are actually doing this work and in these offices and have seen this game played out, which we advised Kanye to do before he went to the White House and had conversations with Trump, in which they will utilize and try to quote unquote make it look like there's some type of endorsement, even though there wasn't an endorsement. So we've seen that play out in the media, and Cube is so gung-ho about really getting what he wants for Black America that is not he's bipartisan. He doesn't care about the parties. But we have to be very strategic, understanding even though you're bipartisan, there's one party that we see right now that is trying to utilize the Black name, the Black vote, to try to pander to black people, to try to make it seem as if all black people are on their side, and they're doing it at the risk of pretty much trying to create a false narrative, and they're doing it on purpose. So what I would say to Cube is, yes, brother, we definitely need that contract with Black America. We definitely need for these politicians to stand up, but don't allow somebody to tell you they're going to do something, they're going to implement something, just to utilize your face and utilize your voice without actually getting that. And that's
something that's really peculiar to me that I zoned in on in all of this is Trump and his people have a problem with the 1619 Project.
Mm-hmm.
The 1619 Project details and breaks down what black people have done for America, and even gets into the finances. And for me, if you have a problem with the 1619 Project on one side, but on the other side claim you want to work with Black America to help our communities financially and help black businesses financially, how am I supposed to believe that, but you have a problem with the facts in the 1619 Project?
Exactly. Go ahead, Tamika.
No, I was going to say, not only do you have a problem with the 1619 Project, he also said that it is racist to have diversity or racial sensitivity training within federal departments. So he does not even want people to talk about the experience that Black people have had and some of the biases that exist within our federal government and schools. And, he said it was racist to force people to have to go through that type of training. So, the emperor has no clothes. Behind the curtain, we know what's really going on. Some people have been touting the fact that, Trump has been letting people out of jail. I think even Michael Pence used it in his debate with Kamala Harris.
That's
where
the
he
First
talks
Step
about,
Act.
Right, the First Step Act. They've been letting people out, and that's great. Shout out to Van Jones and all those at Meek Mills who've been actually working on getting people released. I think that
Cory
Booker
was a co-sponsor of that bill.
Absolutely, I think that's incredible. But what they're not telling you is that they have stacked the courts with federal judges. All of them have been white, so they can't find any. Just like he doesn't particularly, he doesn't believe in the 1619 Project, and he also thinks it's racist to have people trained in racial sensitivity. Well, he must actually really, really, really believe that, because they can't find any Black people or brown people to be judges, federal judges in the courts where our people are most impacted, because we know that Black and brown men particularly, and now Black and brown women, who are becoming the largest population of those going into the system, are going through federal courts. So they've stacked the courts. And so when I say the emperor has no clothes, what I think is important for people to understand is that at the front door, so that the world could see, to my son's point, they're letting people out. They're freeing people and they make it look really good. But in the back door, they have judges who have very conservative views, just shuttling people into the system, locking people up every single day. And those are the courts that actually matter. So I hope that we, to your point, it's a nonpartisan conversation. People should vote for whoever it is that they want, but you need to be a man or a woman and stand in your square and make a decision about your life, because whatever you do or don't do will impact not just you, but generations to come behind you.
And it gets even deeper than that, too. And while I have you guys, talking about white supremacy and overt white supremacy, we live in America. It's racist. White supremacists founded this nation. The document known as the Constitution is basically a manual for white supremacy. But white supremacy in the form that it exists today, and has always, is about devaluing Black people. Not only Black life, but Black assets, right? The things that we own. And so often we're going to be hearing about these opportunity zones. You see, white supremacists are cool giving money to Black folks when y'all stay over there. As long as you stay over there, we can control the value that you have in society. They're into that. They're for that because they can control your value.
And that's the thing.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, and that's what I was saying to people yesterday when I was having this conversation. I said, I would be very happy if when people start having these conversations with Trump and they go in there and he says, I'll give you money, or I'll give you opportunity zones. I'm going to give the HBCUs money, so you guys can stay over there. To start having him appoint some black federal judges, put some people of color inside your cabinet. Ask him for those things, because those things he won't do. It's just like when we looked and the coach, I forgot, I think it was the Cavaliers owner or one of those owners had cursed at his daughter for bringing those people into his house. You willing to give those people millions of dollars to play for you?
You talking about the Clippers owner? The
Clippers owner, yes. Yeah. You willing to give those people, millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars to entertain you. But the minute that they come into your home,
that's right,
there's a problem. So they'll give you a bunch of money, but they don't see you as equal enough to even be in the same room with them.
Well, and so remember, they can control the piece that a lot of people, I believe, fuck up. This is my thing with white supremacy. As long as they can dictate who has value and doesn't have value, they got you.
Right.
Because that's how they get you. They get you when they like, yeah, you went to a HBCU, but that's over there.
Yeah.
Y'all gonna sit here and act like Ben Carson is not black, though?
Yeah, I am gonna act like he ain't black. I am acting like he ain't black.
He's in the cabinet. Ben Carson is over there.
I'm gonna say, just like him and Daniel, he got Daniel Cameron, Ben Carson. When you talk about these people, like, all your skin folk ain't your kinfolk. And we got to look at the values and the culture that they represent. They don't represent anything
and specifically, they're not working to bring value to black people, right? Because that's the piece in all of this. It's about value. And how valuable you are is how powerful you are in society. Like, even with what y'all are dealing with on the front lines in Louisville down there with the families and everything going on in Louisville, Kentucky. The Breonna Taylor case is the case that went nationwide. How much have y'all learned about Louisville and Kentucky specifically and those police officers and the operations of that state since you've been down there, and how it's entrenched in white supremacy and racism from its founding? And the reason we can't get justice the way it should be in the Breonna Taylor case is because Daniel Cameron is running cover for a white supremacist institution, the LMPD in the state of Kentucky, because they don't want all their dirty KKK robes coming out.
Facts.
Yep.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe we say they don't want it, and I get your point, but the way in which they behave in Kentucky, they don't really care. I mean, I'll just give you one small example. There was a curfew instituted on protests right around, when the announcement was, whatever that was, when we heard the announcement, they had a curfew. It was a curfew that, first of all, was only really maintained in a certain area downtown where the protesters have actually been living. So the curfew was really just about the protest, because the rest of the city, people were hanging out, they were racing cars, driving, doing whatever they wanted to do. But they allowed the white militia. They'll say, well, we didn't allow it. They were working. At one point, they were securing someone's private property and things like that. But we saw them. The white militia was walking around with their guns out, showing up at different locations, safe houses for protesters, the church where people were trying to stay safe until the curfew was lifted. They are literally in different law enforcement groups across the country working with the white militia around this country to address protesters. And what scares me about that, I mean, we already saw that Kyle Rittenhouse, he took the lives of two individuals right here in the state that we're in today. He took the lives of two and shot another person's arm off. And we had the president of the United States and many others saying it was probably self-defense. He seems like a nice kid. That is the tone that's being used to deal with white supremacists and with this militia across the nation. So what scares me is that when people say, well, protect Tamika Mallory at all costs and stand, and you guys stay out there, keep doing the work, but then you say in the same breath, I'm not going to vote. Well, if y'all don't vote, they're going to kill us literally on the streets. We will die. So we have a situation that we're looking at here. You can be happy about, the platinum plan, which I think the fact that they even named it the platinum plan is come on now. We know what that's all about, to the point it's pandering. But I don't mind pandering. Pander to me. Give me something.
I mind pandering.
Yeah, we argue about this all the time. I say pander to me because they pander to every other community. So give us some things. But also, to my son's point, who is going to manage making sure that these things happen and that it is being done, Ebro, to your point, in the best interest of our communities? That is not happening. There is nobody in the White House saying, why are we allowing some special operations group to go out here to these protests and pick people off on the streets and freaking kidnap folks, take them somewhere, and then all of a sudden the person appears days later and we don't even know what agency locked them up? That's the type of stuff that's happening around this country. This is not a game. It's not a game.
At all.
Join Tamika Mallory and my son this Saturday, 2:00. It's right up there on what did you say, 68th and
62nd, Columbus.
62nd and Columbus. That's where Black Lives Matter is written in the street, right?
Well, Black Lives Matter is on 57th Street or 56th Street and 5th Avenue, so it's not far.
Not far. But join them. Wear a mask. It's always great to see y'all, man, and we really appreciate the work y'all continue to do for all of us. And we do realize on this show that we can't have these conversations enough. And I just want to, of course, I want to reiterate the same way I started today, which is this doesn't stop just because of who changes in the White House. This was going on. And Tamika and my son was doing this work when Obama was in the White House.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So it's very important that people understand that what's going on is a cultural shift for not only young people, but activists, grassroots organizations, and specifically the Black community to stay aware, stay engaged, stay up to the time, stay informed, because every 2 years, just so y'all know, every year there's a major vote. Next year in New York City, we got to vote for a mayor.
That's right.
The year after that, we're gonna be at the midterm election for the president, where we'll be voting for senators and representatives again. After that, we're gonna be voting for a governor, and then on there, we're gonna be voting for the city council, and then you know what I mean? It don't stop.
The school board election, district leaders. It's always an election every year.
Always, man. And if you're not involved in that, you can't be angry that your kids ain't getting education. We have to be involved in the total process.
There it is. Tamika, my son, love you guys. What's Until Freedom? It's at Until Freedom on IG?
At Until Freedom on everything. UntilFreedom.com, Until Freedom on IG, $ Until Freedom for Cash App. We made it easy. It's simple. You can find us everywhere and you can give Until Freedom on all platforms.
And Tamika hot out here. Tamika got a Beyonce shout out. She was hanging out with Jada Pinkett or something was going on. Jada was bigging it up. Jaden and them came out to Louisville. How's that feel?
You didn't see the new one?
Nah.
She stopped the whole show last night. She said, "I'm big now." In Vogue, them use a piece of her speech now.
What?
I'm big. In Vogue used me last night. I was like, but you will see. It's just that's it. So Meg Thee Stallion, Beyonce, obviously was incredible. And I haven't even processed all of the Beyonce piece yet. Meg Thee Stallion, I love her. Love Kevin Lau. Shout out to him. That was amazing. But in Vogue, do you understand?
Yeah.
I'm big now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I love y'all, man. I love you so much. Hey, Mice, love
Love
you,
you too,
brother.
bro.
Until
Appreciate
freedom,
you.
go check them out and see y'all Saturday, 2 o'clock. Go get it.
2 o'clock. You gonna
Y'all
be
stay-
there, bro?
Y'all stay safe on these streets. You need me
You
there
too,
2 o'clock
Laura.
on
We love
Saturday?
you.
You know you come and march with us.
Yeah, I know. I be keeping it low. I don't ever like to, you know what I'm saying, act like it's about me. I just slide in, show my solidarity. You know what I'm saying? It's about the people.
Yes, sir.
There it
All
is.
right.
Love
Love
y'all.
you.
All
See
right.
ya.
See y'all
Bye,
later.
Laura.
Peace.
Love
All right,
you.
peace.
Bye.